Joined now by the two guys that had a front row seat to the upset, Fox's own Kevin Kuglar and Mark Sanchez. Guys, the narrative as recently as yesterday was that, maybe the Rams are out of contention this year, or Matthew Stafford can't connect with all these young guys on the roster. And here he is throwing for more than 300 with guys like Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua. What did you see that allowed Matthew Stafford to, I don't know if you want to call it a fountain of youth or what, but he was certainly slinging the rock around?
Well, one thing that helped, Mark, was to have good protection for Matthew Stafford. He was hit a ton in the 9 games he played before the injury last year, and he was clean the whole day.
That's exactly right. And this is a guy who's seen everything under the sun when it comes to defenses as a quarterback in this league. And he knows, if I have time, boys up front, just give me a little time, give me that extra strain, and I'll make this defense pay. He saw a lot of zone today. That's why he saw a lot of routes sitting down and breaking into those specific zones and throttling down, and he was nails, lights out. And really, he got him out of jams when plays weren't good. When Seattle dialed up the right defense, he ditched that ball so quickly before anything could go catastrophically bad for the Rams, and that's what really kept him in the game and kept him going towards the end.
I had a chance. I was listening to the end of the broadcast. Wonderful job, by the way. But you guys did mention week 1 can be a little bit of a liar. It can be a little bit of a liar.
That's not what I said. What did I say?
A dirty little liar. You're right. You're right, Mark. I'm curious. Okay, so if we're heading into week 2, the Rams are surprised in a good way. The Seahawks are surprised in a bad way. Quickly, what can each team do to kind of, for the Rams, stay on that track and for the Seahawks reverse it?
Well, listen, there's no reason to hit the panic button if you're Seattle. A bunch of players went down, a couple of silly penalties late in the game, the personal foul type penalties. Those are fixable. You got the bye week coming up here in a couple weeks. Maybe get some of these guys back. Maybe a Jamal Adams gets back in the mix. But plenty of season left, plenty of runway left. Seattle's going to be just fine. And now for L.A., don't read the headlines, man. Don't read your newspaper clippings. Just keep your head down at work, because last time I checked, San Francisco's coming to town. That's a tough ball club, and they just put a hurting on the Steelers. So they got their work cut out for them 2 weeks in a row.
Maybe the most surprising result of week 1. Guys, thank you so much for the time. Safe travels.
Appreciate you having us on. Thanks.
The best cliches in football become cliches for a reason. I mean, we don't play games on sheets of paper. Mea culpa. I'm part of this. I think I gave the Rams 8 seconds of airtime in our preview episode. I mean, look at these two teams and tell me that this should have been a close game. Well, it wasn't. It was just in the opposite way that everybody expected. The Rams go up to Seattle and absolutely house the Seattle Seahawks. You can count on one of these every single week 1. Ironically, it was the Seahawks last year, widely picked as a team that was gunning for the number 1 overall pick. They knock off Russell Wilson. They ride that momentum all the way to a playoff berth. It's way, way, way too early to say that the Rams are going to do the exact same thing. But for the time being, it is a plenty good, feel-good story in its own right that they were able to do this. Matthew Stafford, I don't want to say written off, but when you talk about the conversation about the 10 or so best quarterbacks in the league, this is a guy that's largely been left out. And it's hard to blame people for feeling that way. He got hurt last year. The Rams offense fell apart without its offensive line. Cooper Kupp is not available right now. He's not going to be available for at least the next few weeks. Matthew Stafford's 35 years old. But what does he do? He goes out and balls. He had one of the absolute best weeks of week 1, throwing for 334. And he did it with guys that the casual fans never heard of. Of course, my fellow draft nerds know all about Tutu Atwell. If you are somebody who listens to the NFL on Fox podcast, you are familiar with Puka Nacua, thanks to our friend Peter Schrager. But this ain't exactly the star-studded offense that won the Rams the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago. On the flip side, how about Seattle? This looked like the runaway I thought it would be early on. Seattle got points on its first 3 possessions. They've got a halftime lead. At halftime, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, maybe not the cleanest performance of Seattle's season, but they're going to win this game by, I don't know, 6 to 12 points and move on with their lives. They had 1 first down in the second half. I don't know what the final total was, but as the clock was winding down, they had amassed something like 3 yards in the second half. That's a testament to the Rams. And it's not even as if they were getting after Geno Smith. They didn't sack him until the very last possession of the Seahawks' last gasp attempt to get something going. This was just good, solid defense. And on top of that, in the secondary, where, again, they've lost so much talent. Jalen Ramsey off to Miami. They gave up 5 yards per carry in this game. The Seahawks had success on the ground. They just couldn't get anything going with the passing game, which, if you know what the Seahawks have at receiver, and if you know what Geno Smith was able to do last year, that's all the more impressive that the Rams were able to do this without putting up gaudy pass rush numbers. So I don't know what it means, but it certainly qualifies as one of the biggest surprises of week one, probably the biggest. And guess what, Rams? You have a huge chance to show if it was a mirage or not next week. You get the San Francisco 49ers right here in Los Angeles. I'll be honest, that's a game that a few hours ago I was writing off as a nothing burger, and now I'm a hell of a lot more excited to see it. That's the beauty of actually playing the games.